Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, or whatever the case may be. My name is Marcus, and I am the host of the Black Brazil Today YouTube channel, as well as the BlackBrazilToday.com blog, where I analyze Brazil from the perspective of race. So today's video is entitled, There Are Many Ways to Be Anti-Racist, but Sex is Not One of Them. So I wanted to cover this particular article today because of another situation that I have coming up. I'm reacting to a post by one of my favorite Brazilian Instagram channels called Afroestima 2. Afroestima, those two words, it basically means, instead of saying autoestima, which means self-esteem, the name of this guy's channel is Afroestima, meaning having high esteem in your African ancestry. Okay. Um, so there's a story that I have coming up within the next few days about another story that a lot of people are talking about having to do with a popular black soccer player, plays in one of the top soccer teams in Brazil. This kid is 17 and he's due to start playing over in Europe as soon as he turns 18. He's already been locked up under a contract. But the conversation about well paid, or let's say high value black men who, it seems like whenever they run into money, they always immediately pick up with a woman who seems to be, either white or something close to white. So, I've talked about this topic for, years on the BlackBrazilToday.com blog. So today I just want to set up a part of this conversation for a bigger discussion when I put up the other video about this soccer player and the discussion that's going on online. So for now, before I get into the video, I want to ask you to like this video, share this video, consider subscribing to the channel. Really, if you've seen a few videos here that you've liked, and click on the notification bell so that you'll know when I put up the next video. Okay, so with that said, let's get into today's story. Okay, so there may be many ways to be anti-racist, but sex is not one of them. This is particularly intriguing to talk about when we're coming from the Brazilian perspective, because sexual relations and interracial relations, relations across racial lines, has been one of the pillars that Brazilians believe, because people mix, the society can't be racist. And we've seen just too many examples that debunk that theory. When you're dealing with Brazil, that's the first thing you have to deal with, is what's called the myth of racial democracy, because one of the pillars of the racial democracy myth is based on the idea that blacks, whites, and Indians have been mixing for centuries in Brazil. So how can it be racist? It sounds like, it would seem like that's a logical argument, but when you look into it, and I'm sure many of you, based on experiences and things that you've read, that this is actually not true. The idea part, the second point here, the idea that I'm not racist because I've already been with a black guy. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. And then you have this preference for more European features in mixed children, which is another attribute of racism that you see even when people mix. A lot of times a person who is considered to be of higher social status because of their race, they don't want, if they mix with a person who is darker than them, particularly black people, they want the child to come out as close to the European aesthetic that they bring to the table, and as far as away from blackness as they can be. So in a racial democracy, if we're all equal, why does it matter what the child comes out looking like if they are close into the African phenotype? Unless you naturally believe that the European aesthetic is superior than the African. I mean, you think about that for a minute, but let me get into the story. Again, today's story is courtesy of the Afroestima 2 Instagram page. And that's what he's, in Portuguese, he says, existe várias maneiras de ser antirracista, mas sexo não é uma delas. Okay. So how are we looking at this? Let's just, the next few paragraphs are going to be stuff that I cite from his post. I just translated it. So let's just get into it. So the first part, he's saying effing a mulatta is not being anti-racist. So he says, a few years ago, a text by the poet and actress Elisa Lucinda, this woman in this picture right here, called Por que deixar de ser racista, meu amor, não é comer uma mulata. No longer being racist, my love, is not effing a mulatta. The actual title of that poem is not what he just said. The actual title of that poem is called the Mulata Exportación. And that's based on a long time, I don't know, theory, phrase that comes out of Brazil, the Mulata de Exportação. Because there was a time when there were these shows that this particular, I don't know, TV host was going around the world, and he would have this traveling show with all of these quote unquote mulattas part of the show. So it was like one of the things that Brazil is best at exporting is the mulatta. Okay. The mulata de exportação, the exportation mulata. That was the name of the poem. But what he's saying is that this poem went viral. And I remember this poem. It had to have been about, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years ago that she wrote this poem. The text listed various racist statements and attitudes disguised as supposed compliments. You know what those type of phrases sound like? Oh, well, he's very articulate for a black guy. You know, when somebody says she's black but beautiful, you know, she's beautiful for a dark-skinned girl. These are compliments that are hiding, you know, underneath something that's kind of, you know, it's kind of like a kind of giving somebody some shade in a backhanded way. This is actress Erika Januza with the actor Kyle Paduan. This is a picture. They started a novella together, and it was another scene of white man, black woman, or mulatta, whatever you want to call her, and say, hey, if we're mixing across race lines, how can that be racist, right? One thing I always like to point out is like, why is it people that believe that interracial sex automatically makes somebody not racist? When for 200, 300, 400 years during the slavery era, white men were having sexual relations with black women. Oftentimes it was called, you know, the R word. You know, in Brazil, it would be the E word. But you know what I'm saying? They were known for violating black women during slavery. Are we going to say that that was not racist just because they were having relations with black women? Same is true today. It really doesn't make sense to make that argument. Many people believe that feeling sexual desire for black bodies is proof that there is no anti-black sentiment, but sexualization and affection almost never go together. There's a story. I'm going to get into my links a little bit later because everything that I have in my links are going to play out as to what he's talking about in this particular article. This is an article from some years ago called Black Boom, Uncovering the History of Brazilian Soul. I've done stories about the appearance of black Brazilian soul music back in the late 60s and early 70s. You know, people like Tim Maia, people like Gerson King Combo, and you know, elements of George A. Ben's music. So before I move into the next section, I have to explain that the word black bone here, it has a double meaning. The soul music that black Brazilians fell in love with when they were starting to get into black American soul and funk music. In Brazil, the word power, you translate as poder. But when you say the word black power, in some ways, when you hear it in Portuguese, it sounds like black bone. Right. So it became like a joke among black men in Brazil at the time, because saying black bone in Brazil, okay, what does that mean? It means wood, but it's also a gíria. It is a slang for the male sexual organ. So here you have black bone, right? So either they're saying black power or they're saying black bone. And it was like an inside joke for black men because you're saying black power and black bone at the same time, right? So this next part of the piece that he wrote, the Black Bonewer movement. I call the Black Bonewer movement the group of black men who think that the solution to racism lies in their D's. They tend to think that a racist white woman is only racist because she has never experienced a black man. Okay. It's common for some black men when they see articles about white women accused of racism to comment that this is a lack of them getting some eggplant from a black man. Who would have thought that with so much effort put into the anti-racist struggle, the solution would be in Kleber's underpants? Kleber being just a common name for men in Brazil. This an article that came out some years ago, and I translated it, put it on my blog. Já fiquei com negro. It means I've already been with a black man. It's an argument that people will say in order to deflect accusations of racism against them. Like, if I lay down with a black man, how could I be racist? Okay. Your white daughter loves me. Some rap and funk artists in their lyrics believe that they are leading an anti-racist revolution when they earn money and attract the attention of white women. They often proudly sing that although the fathers of these girls hate them for being with black men from the slums, their daughters love them. They believe that having sex with white women is a way of taking revenge for the racism that these girls' families direct at them. They sing that black has become their favorite color, but in fact, their favorite color may be green. And that's something that I've argued for a long time. Is it necessarily so that this white woman is free of any racist sentiments, or does she just, well, if I got to get with a black guy, at least he's got money? I tend to see it the second way, and I've seen numerous examples of this when I lived in Sao Paulo. Você acredita em Maria Negão? Do you believe in Maria Negão? Now, what's Maria Negão? Some white women call themselves Maria Negão because they are sexually attracted to black men. They may even use memes to argue that racism is the result of the white man's envy of black eggplants. Or they use the famous whoever has tried brigadeiro doesn't want to know about beijinho, which was a meme that was going around. This one right here. Whoever, okay, brigadeiro is a type of, it's something like a chocolate dessert. You know, it's mixed with a few other ingredients, so it's not just chocolate. But Brazil is famous for its brigadeiro, and brigadeiro is known to be dark in color. You know, it's a sweet snack that you can have, a sweet dessert. So what she's saying here, whoever has tried brigadeiro, you know, talking about the black man, doesn't want to know anything about the little kiss anymore. So what does this sound like to me? In a way, she's kind of saying, this kind of phrase is kind of saying, once you go black, you never go black. Once you go black, you never go back. This is just a popular phrase that you'll hear. This is what he was talking about here. And people want to lower this down to the sexual value of black men and stereotypes, right? This is a popular post that I found on Facebook, and it was from the Eu prefiro os homens negros, which means I prefer the black men. Okay. In almost all situations, the Maria Negão is interested in a supposed belief in black people's ancestral sexual abilities. Okay. Maria Negão by MC Totti e Alobinha. Okay. I don't know the song, but I just saw the name of the song is Maria Negão. So I decided to use a picture. Sex is an important part of effective sexual relationships, but it does not in itself constitute an anti-racist tool. Anti-racist tools consist of taking a critical look at race relations, and from there, mapping out ways to dissolve some of the conflicts. Now, this is another story that I translated some years ago. This girl right here and here, she was caught on camera calling the black goalie of the opposing team. She was caught on film calling him a macaco, which means monkey. She lost her job. People dragged her publicly. People were blasting her online. They brought her on to a TV show so she could plead her case. And one of the things that she said is that I'm not racist because I've already been with a black guy. Okay. So again, what does that mean? Just because you laid with a black man, it doesn't mean that you don't see people who look like you being in a superior position than people who look like the black guy you got with. And it's a ridiculous argument. Eu não sou racista, tenho até amigos negros. I'm not racist. I even have black friends. When racism is veiled through justifications, right? You hear a lot of people who say that. I'm not racist because I got black friends. And I've heard people say that to me, you know? Really? Again, I'm not racist. I have black friends. Let me see what's in here that I need to be talking about. I'm not a black person. Então, I have to lower my head. Let me see. So the point here is, okay, right here. Tenho gente preta na minha família. This is what this woman said to justify that she can't be racist because I got black people in my family. What does that mean? Because somebody chose to have black people in your family, or if you even have like a black grandmother, black grandfather, that does not mean that you don't see people closer to your skin complexion as being superior to you know, darker skinned people. Makes no sense to make that argument. So what I want to do right now is to go into some of the links that kind of they speak to what I was talking about in this article by Afro Estima. The racial democracy myth has been alive and well in Brazil for, I don't know, probably about 60, 70, 80 years or so. Racial discrimination and miscegenation. So this is the questionnaire. One of the main reasons, racial democracy and intermarriage in Brazil. The argument says that we mix, we intermarry. How can we be racist? They racism and interracial unions, they exist side by side in Brazil. I don't see how people can't know that. This was a video I posted in a short, and this guy right here is basically saying, look, the white men, they effed our ancestors, so you think I'm not going to get with white women now? Okay. Moving on. The final pillar of the debunked racial democracy postdoctorate research project exposes racism and racial hierarchies within interracial families. So this was an article I did a few years ago, and what I wanted to point out was some of the things that the white mother in an interracial union would say to her kids and to her black husband. Let me see. According to the researcher, this white mother, Mai Branca, a blue-eyed maid from the northeastern part of Recife, which is a capital city of the state of Pernambuco in the northeast, had married several times with black men, and she called her ex-husbands macacos, monkeys. The father of the young woman, a bricklayer, born in Bahia and classified by the daughter as Preto Retinto, meaning very dark-skinned man, was the second of them. Let me see what else here. Okay, so what it's saying here, when the black man in this marriage fought with her, the woman would call him monkey and stinking black, right? She said that, okay, talking to the daughter, actually, is when he fought with her, her mother called him macaco, and I guess she called the daughter preta fedida, meaning stinking black. She said that her hair was bad, huim, like her father's, and beat her when she cried and when she was getting her hair combed. The daughter in this relationship is saying, I used to look at my father, and that man who had an extremely negative black identity even positioned himself as inferior, said the interviewee. So the mixed daughter in this relationship, she would already hear racist things directed at her from her white mother. Her white mother would also insult her black father, and she perceived years later that my father didn't really stand up for himself as a black man. He accepted his supposed inferior position to the white mother. And the white mother was a maid. And if I'm not mistaken in this story, this black man had an education. But even so, they get into an argument, and the white woman would call him macaco and would, say negative things about the mixed daughter. So there's several articles I have on the blog that talk about this. Just because you're married across race lines, like a woman who's a maid lacks an education, she's not in a middle class background. Maybe she can't attract a middle-class white man, so at least she can get a middle-class white man, which is something that I've talked about, a middle-class black man, which is something that I've talked about before. Again, it points out the racial hierarchy that exists in Brazil. Racial democracy and intermarriage in Brazil and the United States, it's another question, because both countries people are arguing that I'm married across race lines. How can I be racist? Interracial sex, racial democracy in Brazil, is it a twin concept? These are more, the guy, Gilberto Freire, is one of the people who is accredited with promoting the idea that Brazil was a racial democracy because people had unions across race. And we now know, we've known this for years, that this is absolutely not true. What other links do I have here? So the guy, the Afro Estima Instagram page talked about this attitude that some funk singers in Brazil have, like, hey, I got money, even your white daughter likes me. And so I would look at this, and this is what they're showing off. Some years ago, a lot of the music videos that was coming out of funk in Brazil in 2015, 16, in that period, they were like copying some of the bling bling videos you would see in the early 2000s of American hip hop videos. But what I noticed is that in American hip hop videos, most of the dancers, scantily clad women in the videos, they were usually black, coming out of black culture and hip hop music. When it gets down to Brazil and they use the same image, most of the women that you saw in a lot of those funk videos were either white, Brazilian white, or just very light-skinned mestizo women. All right. These are some of the images that you would see in some of these videos. And these guys are like, you see black funk singers talking about, hey, I'm black and your daughter likes me. And the video will be full with just women who are not clearly black. Okay. Anybody who's watched Brazilian funk videos are familiar with some of these images. Music to bling to hits Brazil ostentation funk. Party videos bring a lot of cash, flash, and plenty of A. Okay. Again, more of the images coming out of these videos. Don't see a lot of clearly black women. You'll see light-skinned mestizos and white women in these videos, and most of those funk videos that I used to see. So anyway, I think this is a conversation that needs to go on, because we're seeing increasingly in the United States that the interracial thing continues to grow. But it doesn't necessarily say that just because people are mixing across racial lines, this does not necessarily mean that the society or even the person, the whiter person involved in that interracial union, may be less racist than the person 70 years ago. What I'm seeing is that racism has just taken on a different form. Anyway, with that said, I want to hear what you have to say about the video from today. This is just, I wanted to set this up for the article that I got, the video that I got coming up talking about the soccer player. But in the meantime, drop a comment in the comment section, like this video, share this video, consider subscribing to the channel, click on the notification bell. You definitely want to check out the next video that I'm going to post. And with that said, I'm going to end the video here and ask that you all come back, check out the next video that I post.